here's what's coming up on The Goods.
It's basically processed foods and sugars that have been taken out of their natural element. So, like eating strawberries and bananas and fruit is fine.
It's fine.
Right.
But when you take an extraction and then you can take a lot of it at once, that's when you make something addictive.
Right.
When I say the word addict, you may think of drugs or alcohol, right? Well, our next guest wants us to know a thing or two about food addiction. Please welcome medical director and author, Dr. Vera Tarman. Welcome to the show. Okay, so Dr. Tarman, you call yourself a food addict in recovery. Walk us through that challenge of being a food addict and what led you to understanding food addiction.
Okay, so use the word challenge. There's two challenges. There's the personal challenge, and then there's the living in society challenge.
Yeah.
And the personal challenge is for anybody who's ever had, I'm sure many of you have had the experience of one is not enough, you want the whole bag, or you want 2 bags or 3 bags.
Yeah.
And what happened with me is that I found that even after 3 bags, I would want 4 or 5. And it became the focus of my mind all the time. And it wasn't until I was actually in addiction medicine that I just thought, oh my God, this is the same thing. Let me do the same thing. Let me do the same kind of treatment that I give for my addicts to myself. And when I did that, not only did I lose virtually 100 pounds, because I was much bigger than I am now.
Wow.
And
I know, yeah. About that.
And can I just take a segue and say, one of the things that we say is it's easy to lose weight, but the hardest is to keep the weight off. And the reason why it was so hard is because if I kept eating the foods that I was eating, but in small moderation, I just keep thinking about it, even though I'm not eating it because I don't want to gain the weight, and then I give in, and it would be that constant battle. And when I finally figured out how to solve that, then I lost the weight, and I actually feel safe, like I feel comfortable. I'm not sitting there going, oh man.
Now, in your case, some food was literally controlling your life. It was like 24/7. So how do you know if you are a food addict? Is that the case?
Okay, so one of the things that, like as a backdrop to that question is that the food industry makes food to be very addictive. So, advertising is all about getting the person to know about the food, but it sells itself. Once the person has it, they want more. That doesn't mean they're a food addict. If a person has a vulnerability, just like for not everybody who drinks is an alcoholic, they get drunk, but they're not alcoholics. There's a hypersensitive response where they really like that stuff. And so they want more, and then what happens over time is you develop a tolerance, and you have more, and you have more, and then what ends up happening is the substance takes over your life.
Right.
And so then we have basically the definition of addiction, and one way to understand how do you know if you're an addict, whether it's cigarette or alcohol or food, is what are the ABCDEs of addiction.
ABCDE.
And the ABCDEs of addiction actually come from the American Society of Addiction Medicine. They sort of coined this. It's not mine. A is, can you abstain when you want to? If you say I want to quit and I'm going to, and you can, or do you give in half an hour later, or later when somebody makes you mad, or even a week later? B, can you control your behavior around it? I'm just going to have a few because I'm eating later, and then you don't.
Right.
C, compulsion or craving. Are you thinking about it? Even if you're not necessarily eating, are you thinking about, I can't wait till I get home tonight so I can have my 2 tubs of Haagen-Dazs. And it's the same as the person who's looking for their bottle of wine at night.
Sure.
And they need it to get through the night. This person needs their 2 tubs of ice cream to get through the night and their Netflix. So that's the cravings. And then there's the diminishing or denying that it's a problem. I got diabetes, but it's not insulin-dependent diabetic. I'll stop when I have to. So you keep denying, and it's what we call changing your bottom.
Right.
At first it would have been, I'm going to hit 200 pounds, then I better stop. Well, then it's 250 pounds.
Right.
You keep denying. And then the last one, the E, is emotional. Do I use it to maintain and govern my emotions? Because if I don't have it, I will actually get into withdrawal.
And anxiety. All right.
Exactly.
So are there some foods that are more addictive than others? I'm assuming healthier foods, we don't really have people who are addicted to vegetables.
If we ate the way that we were eating 200-300 years ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation. It's basically processed foods and sugars that have been taken out of their natural element. So like eating strawberries and bananas and fruit
Yeah,
is fine.
it's fine.
Right.
But you keep it in the fibrous element.
The
You're
natural
not
form.
extracting it the natural form.
Yeah.
When you take an extraction and then you can take a lot of it at once, that's when you make something addictive.
Right.
Yeah. Could it also be the access we have to food? Like now everything's open
Yeah.
24 hours.
Absolutely.
You get whatever you want. You don't
Yes.
even get out of your car. You can get it whenever you want, however you want. You get it
Right.
delivered to your house.
Yes.
Is that part of the problem as well?
Yes, and now it's access to kids. That's
Yeah.
all they're eating sometimes.
Well,
Yeah.
speaking of kids, let's talk about the number one, biggest one is what? Sugar?
Yes,
Let's talk
sugar,
about that.
because our brains are wired to like sweet anyway. When we talk about drugs like alcohol and whatever, they're just hijacking a natural reward system, and that reward system is been engineered to like sugar.
Right.
Which is why food addiction is more addictive than the others.
But you got to think that then even fast foods are putting sugar in everything,
In
including,
meat, in
like,
the salami,
in
they have
French-
things,
yeah,
that
in
don't
French
even
fries.
use sugar. Yeah.
So that craving is there, and again,
Yeah.
like I said, at an early age. So how do you combat that? What do you do?
Yeah.
Like,
Okay, so once you are a diabetic, even if you're eating well and your sugars are normal, you're still a diabetic.
Right.
But if you haven't reached that stage yet, you may be able to just eat the way we should have been eating 200 or 300 years ago,
Right,
which is the
right.
sugar and fruit.
yeah. So if we feel we are going down that road,
Yes.
so what should we do?
So food addiction, I'm talking about it today, and I'm so glad that you guys have asked me to come here to do this, because it's not yet acknowledged as a condition, and until that's the case, going to your doctor, you won't get a response about what I'm talking about. Addiction doctors are saying this isn't a problem, but regular doctors aren't, so don't go to your regular doctor.
Right.
Unfortunately then, where are you going to go? We ask that you look for a food addict specialist, and
Okay.
I work at Renaissance, so we have a food addiction program. You have to be careful though, to make sure that the person understands the addiction framework,
Right. Okay.
which
yeah,
is like the ABCDEs, and then once you're there, how do you treat that?
and seek that help. Wow, great information. Thank you so
So
much, guys.
enlightening.
It's so important. Thank you very much, Dr. Tarman. And guys, Shahir's making a dessert you're gonna feel good about, guys. And spoiler alert, no refined sugar.
Let's talk about addiction.
No refined sugar. That's great. And it is. You know what?
Here's what's coming